Since we're still in the winter season, I decided to look back at last year's winter lineup and talk about one of the most popular animes that came out last year. And that is My Dress Up Darling. Not only was My Dress Up Darling the most popular anime to come out in the year 2022, but it's an anime that completely broke the internet because as soon as it was airing, so many people were talking about it and there was already a ton of fan art being made in just a short amount of time. And you have to remember as well is the fact that this anime aired out when other two big titles were also airing in the winter anime of 2022, and that is Attack on Titan's final season part 2 as well as Demon Slayer season 2. Both these two series as well had a lot of discussion. So the fact that My Dress Up Darling, a completely new anime, had the same level of discussion just like those two really goes to show you just how popular the series is. So in today's video, I'll be talking about what makes this anime really popular and how it completely broke the internet. There's a lot of reasons why this anime was considered as one of the best animes to come out in 2022, so let's just start with the characters. The story in My Dress Up Darling is all about our main male character named Gojo, no not that Gojo, who has a hobby that he really likes, and that is making dolls. However, after one childhood incident in which one girl told him that what he was doing was completely weird, this made Gojo lose self-confidence, and as a result, he had trouble making new friends as he was afraid that if he ever talked about what he actually liked or told people the hobbies he liked, he did not want people to judge him just because of the things he liked. He did not want to get ridiculed just like he did in his childhood. And for a while, he actually did think that he was just going to be alone for the rest of his life. That is, until he meets none other than Marin Kitagawa, a girl that would not only be considered one of the best girls of the year 2022 of anime, but also many people consider her as one of the best female main characters in any rom-com. As the reason why so many people love Marin as a character is because she's very outgoing, is a very positive person, and doesn't hide the things that she actually likes. Like early on in this series, we find out that she's a huge fan of things like anime, manga, and cosplay, but she's not ashamed of it, and in fact, she likes to express herself how much she likes these kind of things, and it's very clear that Marin doesn't care what other people have to say, which I think is a really great message because it goes to show us that no matter what your hobby is, regardless of your gender, you are allowed to enjoy that hobby. It doesn't matter what other people have to say, and if people judge you, then who really cares? Because as long as you're happy, that's all that matters. And that's what makes the dynamic between Marin and Gojo so unique and so very different from any other rom-coms. Because here, you actually do care about the characters. You want to see them happy. You want to see them succeed. Both the female character and the male character. Oftentimes, there are other rom-coms that have a habit of making very unlikable protagonists, whether it is the main female or the main male character. That can mess up with the entire story, because even though you have a good story plot, if you have very unlikable characters or characters that you don't really care about, a lot of people aren't going to be interested in the story because, well, the characters aren't that great. Another thing that made My Dress Up Darling so popular and so well liked by everyone is that they didn't use the will they won't they formula, as the more time Marin and Gojo spent time together, the more Marin started to get feelings for Gojo, and she doesn't hide it or she acts like a tsundere pretending that she has no feelings for the guy. No, she clearly admits it very early on that she has feelings for him, which was very good to see because a lot of rom-coms do the whole will they won't they formula, and while it can work if done right, this could also be something that ruins the series, as many people are tired of sometimes seeing chapters, hundreds of chapters, or seeing hundreds of episodes in which the main male character and the main female character still have no idea how they actually feel towards each other. And that can annoy the audience because based on how the story is going, if it's very clear that these two characters have feelings for each other and still can express them, then it becomes really aggravating to see, as you know that they have feelings for each other, but for whatever reason there hasn't been a confession, or in some cases where there's about to be a confession, for some reason the story either adds another character in order to form some sort of love triangle, or in some cases they make a problem in order for that confession to never happen, and that could annoy the entire audience, as it's very clear that at this point the story is just simply being stretched. But once again, that's not what happens in My Dress Up Darling, as Marin is very early on admitting that she has feelings for Gojo because she spends so much time with him and realizes that he's actually a very caring person and is somebody that she wants to be by his side. So it's at this point, it's not a matter of will they won't they, it's a matter of when they will go out in a relationship. But with that being said, that's not the only plot of the story. Sure, that's the biggest and most important thing in the story, is that you want to see Gojo and Marin be in a relationship, but at the same time there are other aspects in My Dress Up Darling that makes the story even more interesting. More specifically, the story plot in which it involves Marin wanting to be a good cosplayer, and because Gojo is really good at making dresses for dolls, and making a cosplay outfit for Marin is not really something that Gojo can't do. It's very clear that Gojo has the skills to be making cosplay outfits. And throughout the story, we see Gojo finally having a good time in which he's able to express himself freely without worrying how people will judge him. We see Gojo realize that Martin has been the only person, apart from his grandfather, that hasn't judged him for the things he likes. Because that's the person that Martin is. She's not a person that judges you based on the things you like. She's a person that judges you based on your personality and how you treat other people. And that is something that becomes a very huge important thing for Gojo's character about him. Because without Martin, and if you have never met Martin in his life, he still would have acted the way he acted, being all alone, not being able to talk to people, not being able to express himself, and still having self-confidence issues. And that's more of a reason to still be interested in these characters, because you want to see them succeed, you want to see them happy. And while Gojo isn't anything unique, he's still a very interesting character. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that it's always going to be sunshine and rainbows, as in the series we see a little bit of conflict between Martin and Gojo. While it isn't anything serious or something that could destroy the relationship between each other, there is still conflict, showing us that not everything is always going to be perfect. For example, when Gojo overhears students saying that there's no way Martin and him will ever be in a relationship, this results in, for a short time, Gojo ignoring Martin completely and trying not to have any conversations with her. But later on, Martin confronts Gojo, asking him why he has been ignoring her, to which Gojo responds saying that he did not want to give people the wrong idea that they are both in a relationship, showing us once again that Gojo really does care of what people have to say about him. But Martin doesn't care, as she states that it doesn't matter what other people think of them because they are already friends, showing us that Martin doesn't really care about what other people have to say about her. Or another example that I can think of is when Martin and Gojo are hanging out and Martin is really excited for her next cosplay costume. However, Gojo reveals that that costume she has to do on her own. Of course, this creates a misunderstanding because Martin thinks that Gojo doesn't want to do cosplay related things with her anymore, but in reality that's not the case, because Gojo only said that is because the most recent cosplay that she wants to do shows a lot of skin, and he's very sensitive about that. Once again, another example that not everything is always going to be perfect. But the thing about these conflicts is also the fact that they don't last forever. Oftentimes, romance stories have a habit of creating conflict or drama in order to make the story interesting. And while there's no issue with that whatsoever, it does become an issue when it's out of nowhere or when the drama takes too long to be dealt with, showing us that the only reason why the drama hasn't finished is because it stretches the story to keep going on. But that's not what happens in My Dress Up Darling. Sure, there are still conflicts between the characters in some cases, but in those cases it usually resolved in a very short amount of time. Usually they talk it out or they clear the misunderstanding, and then later on Gojo and Martin just simply hang out and act as if nothing has happened. And I think that's how things should be. Drama shouldn't be extended just to keep the story going. No, I think it should be dealt with as soon as possible if it's just clearly a misunderstanding, or the drama could be solved if the characters just simply talk it out. Because had it not done that in My Dress Up Darling, most likely people would have probably gotten annoyed by that and would have labeled My Dress Up Darling as just another typical rom-com story that we've seen 100 times. But that's not the case, and I'm really glad that didn't happen, because My Dress Up Darling is not your typical romance story. That's the reason why My Dress Up Darling became so popular and managed to break the entire internet, is because it did things very different from your typical romance story. You had characters that you actually do care for, both Martin and Gojo. You have Martin, who is very expressive and doesn't hide how she actually feels or acts, as well as the dynamic between Gojo and Martin is something that a lot of people consider as to be completely natural. It doesn't feel forced, or it doesn't feel like the only reason why this is all happening is just because they're the main set of characters for the story. I think the only complaint I've seen from some people about this series is just the fan service that they showed. Like, they did show a decent amount of fan service, but to be honest, are you really that surprised that an anime has fan service? Like, I think at this point, like, if you're still complaining about fan service in anime, you are either new to anime or you just can't accept the fact that regardless whether you like it or not, there's always going to be fan service in anime. Like, it's just something that a lot of people have come to accept, that no matter what, there's always going to be fan service in anime whether you like it or not. So yeah, while My Dress Up Darling does have fan service, it doesn't really bother me because I've seen so many other shows that have fan service, so at this point it's not really surprising that there's fan service. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because this was something that I always saw whenever My Dress Up Darling was always having discussions. People were still complaining about the fan service. But yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.